So now we've talked about 3 of the components. Now we're going to jump in and talk about the 4th component of the self, known as our social reputation. So unlike our self-concept, our social reputation is not the inside of the bubble. If I could draw it, it would just be the outer layer. If you think about a candy-coated chocolate, the social reputation is really just the candy coating, versus our self-concept is the chocolate in the center. So it's really the outside of the candy, the outside of the marble. And that's because this is really our external projection of ourselves. This is what's publicly known. These are the social roles we play in how other people view us, and it's also the first impressions we make. If you've ever been familiar with an elevator speech or how you'd introduce yourself in small talk, if somebody said, hi, hi, how are you? Who are you? Why are you here? How you introduce yourself, how you make that first impression. You might include some bits about your self-concept that you think are more relevant for the scenario, and that's fine. You might be curating your social reputation and picking bits of yourself you want new people to know about you. So I may say something like, hi, I'm Dr. Kathleen Hughes. I work at the University of Calgary and I specialize in social development. That might be something I'm willing to put in my social reputation and make publicly facing. Of course, what you include in your social reputation will be context specific, whether you're at a business meeting or a fandom and Comic-Con meetup or at a parenting group. You might include very different tidbits about yourself. So social reputation is context specific, but the idea is it's always what's sort of facing outward. And we do a lot of social reputation management. This is the idea that we're constantly trying to protect certain elements of our self-concept from getting to the outside of the marble or the outside of the candy-coated chocolate. That is, there is a big difference between what we allow on the outside and what we lock away on the inside. We really see a differentiation between what we allow to be public information and what we have and we try and keep as private information. Now this can be very different for different individuals. Some people are more open about some of these details, but some of the types of things a person may want to keep more private would be something like their internal emotions. Maybe they don't want people to know that they get really irritated at work. Maybe they don't want people to know that they get really anxious and self-doubt themselves at certain times. You also might want to keep it under wraps if you choose to use substances, because not everyone may be as open-minded or as tolerant about the substances you're using. You might also want to keep your political beliefs private. Now that's something we do see a lot of individual variation on. Some people are very outspoken about their political beliefs, and some people are very closed. Also things like financial details, you may not want to disclose your debt, or you may not want to disclose your salary or your earnings. You may want not to disclose your health details. For instance, do you want to give your DNA to one of those public DNA testing companies? Are you concerned about if that's going to notify insurance and what have you? You may not want to disclose things about your sexuality. And this may not just be if you are a sexual minority. There may be certain things like affairs or sexual behaviors, even if you are heterosexual, that you want to keep private. And of course, criminal behaviors might be on there. You might not want people to be prejudiced against you if they find out that you have criminal activity in the past. There could be a lot more in there. There could be just simple little embarrassing anecdotes about your childhood or about clumsy accidents you want to keep private. There could be many different things, and this is going to be an individual bubble. Some people are going to be much more open or much more closed about these things. Now, these are the parts of our self-concept that we don't want to become part of our social reputation. We also know that there's some stuff that's even more external to our social reputation. If you think about the social reputation as the first impression people see when they meet you in an elevator, well, think about what somebody could know about you just by looking you up online. So depending on your privacy settings or depending on what you require your followers to do, different people may have access to your profiles, whether you have a public profile, a private profile, both, if you have a fake profile. And so depends on what platforms you're using and how you engage with them, this may really shape your online persona. And so an online persona is another component of our social reputation, but it's even more publicly accessible. It's something that a person only needs to know your name or know your online handle in order to access. And so some of the things that could be included in one's online persona is, depending on what you tweet about or what you take pictures of or what you share, this may give us some insight into your interests and into who you are. So if you're taking pictures of food and it's all vegetarian food, we might understand that you might be vegetarian or be interested in vegetarian meals. If you have pictures of yourself, that might tell us a little bit about your gender, your age, your ethnicity, your hair, things of that nature. And depending on the type of platform you're using and what it allows people to see, we might be able to understand who your connections are, who are your friends, who's your inner circle. This is something, of course, we're very worried about, because when there are malicious users out there trying to get handles on things and trying to use this information for nefarious reasons, this could be a major sensitivity issue. In addition, in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of studies about how we may curate what part of our self-concept gets to go online. So you may not be sharing your down in the dumps struggles. You may only be posting the times you're happy or the times you're successful. Or maybe you are a person that is blogging about all your mental health struggles or when you're sick, and this is what you're curating. So it's more of a depressing sort of look. We know that some individuals use social media to kind of vent and deal with their emotions, and we find this is linked with higher instances of neuroticism. They tend to use more negative words, and they may rant more on social media. We'll talk more about that in Unit 8 when we get to the media, but it's the idea that your personality may influence how you choose to filter and curate what's going on. In addition, how much you disclose about yourself. Do you allow photos of your family? Do you not allow photos of your family? Do you only talk about politics? Do you never talk about politics? Which components of yourself are going on the internet is a big difference. And of course, we also know that the way you choose to present yourself on any given platform might vary between platforms. There was a meme going around before about people's profile pictures and how the profile picture they selected for Facebook versus Tinder versus LinkedIn would be very different. And not only would profile pictures be different, but the way you disclose information and what side of yourself you choose to present may be very different depending on the platform. So we know that our self-concept is fairly stable, but we can work at changing it. What about our social reputation? What about this externally focused social reputation? Is it stable? Well, it's actually way more stable, much more stable. And that's because your social reputation is this external view of you. It's what other people think of you, and it's your reputation. Reputations are harder to change. Even if your behavior changes overnight, it may take people a long time to accept that you have truly changed. So if you think about your self-concept and you're trying to deal with addictions and you quit cold turkey and months down the road you feel really good about it, other people may still view you as in the throes of addiction and still as an active user, even though you're no longer a user. So to understand this, we have to understand what makes up our social reputation. Although we choose what goes into our public persona a lot of the time, other people choose what they want to pay attention to. And this is often the characteristics in us that show a lot of continuity and a lot of contrast. So by continuity, we're talking about things that are pretty stable. People choose to pay attention to things like our gender, our ethnicity, our name, and they choose to pay attention to things that make us stand out and make us different. So this is the idea that we become quickly tokenized. The things that make us different from the majority is the things that make up our identity. And so this is the idea that if you are an ethnic minority, if you're a religious minority, if you're a person with a visible disability, these are things that although you don't see them as part of your core self-concept, they may be pretty peripheral to who you think you are. Other people may pick up on this and choose to use this as part of your reputation. And so this is problematic. And because this is so resistant to change, other people may use some of these tokenisms and some of these things even after they change. So let's give an example. I was a person who wore glasses at a very young age. Before I could walk, I was wearing glasses. I'm no longer wearing glasses, as you can see. I stopped wearing glasses when I was 16, and when I was 18, I was in grade 12 biology, and the teacher was doing a genetics activity with the class and asked the class to name a person in the class with freckles or curly hair or glasses. And when the teacher asked for someone who wore glasses, everybody said, Kathleen wears glasses. And I had not worn glasses since grade 9. So how can we change this very stable reputation? Well, we usually need to do what's known as a communal adjustment. This is the idea that we need to do a public ritual in order to get people to view us differently. So if we think to social anthropology and religious studies, we view the role of rituals as very powerful here. This is the idea that having a wedding ceremony or a graduation ceremony or a baby shower, in order to get someone to change your view, oh, you are grown up, you're grown up now, you graduated college, or you're a parent now, or you're getting married. These rituals play a very major part in changing us in the eyes of our family and our community, so that they modify the reputation to us us and understand we're no longer kids or teens, or we're no longer dependents, but we're now becoming independent members of society. We can also think about other types of things, like a coming out process for someone who is a sexual minority. We can think about a retirement party or a bar mitzvah or a quinceañera. We can think about other types of more public rituals that can help with that. Now, despite some of these public rituals and despite some of our best efforts, sometimes these things just don't go the way we desire, and we end up in what's called an identity crisis. Identity crisis is usually a problem with what is in our external facing social reputation. And this can include things such as identity displeasure. This is the idea that we're not happy with what's in our reputation. This might be a very toxic reputation. There was a bad rumor about us, people are judging us maliciously, or there's this unfair component to ourselves that they've made public, or maybe a very private part of ourselves we didn't want to see public became public. We can also see identity displeasure when we're experiencing tokenism. This might be the idea that somebody views you as the token minority, or they view you as the token smart person, or the token clown. This might be the idea that they view you in a one-dimensional way, and they don't see you for the multifaceted ways that you truly are. We can also think about identity crisis in terms of midlife crisis. This is the idea that who we thought we were going to become, all of a sudden we're in our 40s or 50s and we don't like who we are. We don't like the path we took in life. And now we decided we don't want this. We want to pick up a new hobby. We want to work very hard, very quickly to shake up how other people view us. We may have cosmetic surgery. We may change our hairstyle drastically, or start a new fitness regime, or change our diet. Perhaps we decide, oh no, we're now a middle-aged man who does nothing but play golf. Perhaps we're going to pick up a musical instrument like the mandolin, or we're going to buy a food truck and start a whole new part of ourselves to try and shake up our social reputation and our identity. We can also hit identity crises for other reasons. A very common one is identity conflict. And this is the idea that you have two core parts of yourself, and although they're both in your self-concept, when it comes to the reputation, people have a hard time seeing you as both because they don't accept how you can be these two seemingly opposing things. So this is the idea that if someone moved cultures, perhaps they were born in India and they moved to the United States, and they believe that they are a bicultural person. They are an Indian American. And this is the idea that they have holidays like Diwali, but they also celebrate the more American Christmas celebration. And they believe they can be both. They may experience identity conflict when people expect them to choose one or the other. And they expect them either to fully assimilate to the melting pot of the USA or to maintain their roots in their motherland. Another type of identity conflict is when we have a working parent. And although you can certainly be a working parent, I wrote this full unit while my child was standing beside me at the computer, working and parenting at the same time. But a lot of times people may say, well, you can't do this. You can't do the both at once. Either your baby's your job or your baby's your baby. And so that's something that a lot of us struggle to kind of show, look, I'm doing both of these. I'm doing both of these simultaneously. It's something I can handle. And another type of identity crisis is when we don't have much of an identity. We're experiencing identity deficit. And this might be related to social reputation or related to self-concept we were previously talking about. This might be when there's a lack of stuff happening in your self-concept. It kind of feels empty and you don't know what to make of it. So it could be that people don't know you, and you don't have much of a reputation, or it could be you don't even know yourself. Either way, you don't know what to put in your bubble. If when I was talking about the bubble, you were confused what you would put there, you may be experiencing identity deficit.